What's happening, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Chamber Podcast. My name is Rob Johnson, and joining me in the studio today, Ben and Tammy Stahl. Welcome, friends.
Hello, how you doing?
Thank you. How are you guys doing today?
Very happy to be here.
Good. Well, welcome. You guys are relatively new Chamber members, and today we're talking home inspections, not just home inspections, but we're talking about Steeleman, and I want to know more about the business. The first thing I want to know is where the name come from.
Good question.
You gonna answer this, or
You're gonna. It's your idea.
okay? So it came from our last name is Stahl, and it's Steeleman is kind of my take on our name. It's worker with steel. So like everybody had back in the day had their name, it was associated with what
With
they
their
did.
profession, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And as far back, in my family, my dad was manufacturing with steel, his dad, so it kind of held true. So, but I'm the guy that went into the framing carpentry. So I've got to kind of carry that, so.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I know that there's always a story behind why someone decided to get into a particular industry. And I know home inspection and commercial inspection, there's no different, I'm sure. So why don't you give me a rundown on the why behind why you chose to get into this industry?
Sure. So, before, right out of high school, I was doing framing, carpentry, framing in houses, that kind of thing. Did a lot of new homes in the 90s, late 90s and early 2000s. A lot of people remember back to that time. There are a lot of houses going up during that time. Unlike I think what we've seen since. So, and then we had a big crash, and the real estate market immediately in Michigan, a lot of people had a lot of pain, 20-30% drop on home prices. People lost their homes, that kind of thing. And so I was doing that. I started out framing. I got my builder's license in early 2000s and was building homes, ended up getting my own crews. Started doing the complete homes from the ground up. So I've either been a part of or done just about everything you can do with a residential home. And then, like I said, when the crash hit, most of my subcontractors and that, they all moved down to Florida or some other part of the South, and they never came back. And then some of the older guys just quit. So then, you try to do what you can. And then eventually, I ended up going into the home inspections. I had been around it, but had never really had the time to get into it. I had always thought that'd be cool. I could use the knowledge that I have, and I'd have to fill the gaps and get some more training in that because there are other systems, finished systems, that kind of thing. And so I ended up doing that, and here we are today. I've been doing it for about 9 years now. So.
Yeah. What I've always found interesting about the home inspection business, and my mom's been a realtor for over 25 years, so I've kind of had a backseat, so to speak, in this particular industry. So, and then obviously with us consulting for a bunch of realtors and whatnot, I kind of see it from both sides. I've always thought it was interesting, the people that have never had a job in the trades going into home inspections. Not because they can't do it. I'm sure you can. Anyone can have a checklist and a procedure and probably run through it. But it's the uncommon things. It's the things that you can only really see with time.
Yes.
I've always found it interesting. Not that I want to put like an age limit, like with the presidency, like you have to be 35 or older to, be a home inspector. But
70.
Yeah, right. Well, I always thought it was interesting because to me that is a profession where time and time and market is super valuable.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And I think, that you hit on a really good point because Michigan is a certification state. There's a mix of states that are only certification, and there are a lot of states that are license states that require you to have licensing, and they're very heavily regulated. So, but Michigan, the state of Michigan doesn't recognize certification per se. So it's hit and miss. You could get a guy that basically took a class and 3 months later he's inspecting your home, and you're putting up, say, a $300,000 or $400,000 blood, sweat, and tears there, and you got a guy who's basically learning on your house. So it is a big deal to get someone with the experience, and I think it's a big deal here in Michigan. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then, you got a guy who's like, hey, the dishwasher works. I'm signing off on this. We're good to go,
Yes.
And that can be a really big problem for the buyer of that home,
Yes.
Or if, especially like it's even more serious on the commercial side, because now you're buying a commercial property, which is typically going to be more expensive than a residential property.
For sure.
And all that liability that goes into that. And you're like, oh, come to find out, we had, black mold all about and no one told us,
Yeah, commercial roofs are very expensive. House roof is very expensive too. I mean, you're looking at even a small roof can be $8,000-$10,000 these days.
Sure.
And a commercial roof, I mean, a small commercial roof can be $20,000. So up to $100,000 I've seen on moderately sized roofs. So.
Yeah. So I believe that every company that has or that is going to have longevity has to have some type of distinguishing factor. I pick on realtors a lot, even though I love them and obviously work with them a bunch, but I always tell them, like, we all know you buy and sell homes. Like, what else do you do? Because I really do want to know, like, what's the difference? And so same question on the home inspection side. Why don't you go ahead and give me a rundown, and I'll flip this one over to you, Tammy, and you can tell me kind of the X factor. I'll put you on the spot of Steeleman Home Inspections. So,
absolutely. Well, happy to be here today, by the way.
Well, good.
We're very different, I would say, in the fact 3 ways. And in a nutshell, number one, we're there 24/7 to take your call, and that's huge. It's critical, especially for a new home buyer. You're buying a home. You got a question about the report, and your home inspector is MIA. They shut their doors at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I thought that was crazy, and I never wanted a company like that when I was a buyer. So that's one of the things that we have, put into our business is 24/7. I've got a little bit of flack for that. He doesn't like it too much, but I take the calls. I've literally answered the phone one time at 4 a.m. I got a great
What
job.
time?
I've literally answered the phone one time at 4 a.m. And he's like, no one's answering it, but I happen to be up working at that time. But it really will want to be there for you. So 24/7 if you're a realtor or a buyer. Number 2, we are full service. And that, to me, speaks volumes because of his work ethic. He's not just a home inspector that's going to come in and tell you to hire somebody else and leave. We also offer radon, 48-hour radon testing. I'm sure you've heard a lot of the government, commercials about radon. It does cause cancer. We see it all the time in Michigan. In every county, it has nothing to do with the age of the home. It has to do with the topography. It's your soil. So radon comes from the soil and comes upward. So we offer radon testing. We offer pest inspections, wood-destroying pest. We offer pool inspections, well and septic, and water tests that are fast. They come back in 2 business days. We also have drain scope technology. So we have a video drain scope report that we can give you. And these are all additions to the home inspection that you can offer. So we are full service. We answer the phone 24/7. And then I would just say number 3 is his background is just second to none. I've never seen anybody with that kind of extensive background, when they are looking at a home, because every house has problems, everyone. He's done a new build. I'll give you an example. And he's found a gas leak when the painters were downstairs. And I was there that day, and he had to tell everybody to leave and get out of the house. So, you don't think you need a home inspection on a new house, but you do. But if you don't have that experience, like you said, you can just jump online and take a test. If you don't know how to build a house, it's just paramount to the whole home inspection process.
Yeah, and a quick PSA, if you build a new home and you don't want to get a home inspection, you should get your head checked. Like there's I can't imagine, because like if you have a subcontractor or a PM that's going to be billing this out to other people, it's going to be the lowest bidder. So the dude that just started hooking up gas lines is probably doing that. So, at least for me, that's what I would think. I would absolutely want a home inspection on a new house, probably more so than a 10-year-old house.
Yes. And it's rare to have that viewpoint because
really,
yes.
it is insanity. I just had one in Fowlerville 2 weeks ago. The builder's manager said, "Why are you having a home inspection?" Knew the buyer, that kind of thing. Why are you having a home inspection? This is a brand new house. Blah blah blah, $350,000 house. Well, one of the things that I always like to go to is I had a house in Novi, probably 4 or 5 years ago, it was $750,000 house. So now that house is, you can imagine what it's worth today with the way things have gone. Brand new house, beautiful home, got on the roof. Think of how many municipality inspectors are going to get up on the roof. They're not. 200 shingles had to be replaced. And this is because the way the builder looks at it is, well, you don't know who you're getting up on your roof. This could be their first roofing contractor that they've ever used, and they're learning on your roof. And so the builder looks at it as, hey, there's municipality inspectors. What are you doing? Kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then I get up there, and the buyer's thinking, hey, I paid for a new roof. I want a new roof. And so the builder's like, well, I'll caulk all the nail heads. 200 shingles later, he's like, no, I paid for a new roof, and he paid me to be up there for 2.5 hours, and they replaced each shingle that was improperly attached. And it definitely looked like somebody was learning on their roof. I mean, it was like there were exposed nails all over the place.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that's
crazy.
That's why I would just think it would just make sense to have it done, because you got, at least 10 different trades coming in to put this house together.
Yes.
And they're all not communicating and having a group call every morning to talk about, what they're all doing. That's not happening.
You've got an inside view. I can tell you've been around this industry a little bit.
I haven't. Like, if you want me to fix your computer, I'm your man. But if you want me to hang something up straight, it's probably a really high bar for me. I'm just thinking about this from a common sense perspective.
Exactly. And it's funny you say that, because the average person doesn't understand. So say I'm a licensed builder. So say you hired me to build your house. The average person doesn't really understand that I, as a licensed builder, if I'm building your house, probably don't really do anything personally on your house. Right. Like you just said, you've got subcontractors. You might have 10 different, you might have 12. It depends what you have. And they're never actually, so they could be a great, honest person, but somebody slips between the cracks.
Yeah, they're hiring the guys from Home Alone to come do the plumbing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So right. Your friend can be great, Yeah.
Yeah.
He can be the most respected, or she can be the most respected person in the community, but they're not personally, unless they're personally doing everything. I mean,
yeah, that's interesting. I find the the lack of overall awareness on that just to be shocking.
Yes.
So. All right, so let's talk a little bit more. You said full service. So I would imagine what you mean by that is home inspectors sometimes just do the home inspections. They don't do the water, they don't do the radon, they don't do the well and septic. That's subbed out to someone else. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, yes. A lot of times they will offer radon service, but what I don't like about a lot of the services of our competitors is they'll come in with a wand, they'll test it for 10 seconds, which is crazy because radon fluctuates. Yeah. The first hours 1 through 6, it could be like level 2.0, and then 7 through 10, it could be 26. So what we do is we do a 48-hour radon test, and then at the end of the 48 hours, at the end of the 48 hours, we capture the average, and then we email that to you, and it is EPA protocol. Now, if you do have high radon, it's not the end of the world. You can get it remediated, and it's so intelligent to get it at the home inspection because the seller typically pays for that remediation if it's found during your home inspection contingency on the purchase agreement. So if you get a home inspection and you get radon within your home inspection contingency window, seller pays to fix that 9 times out of 10. So you just saved $1,000 and you're safe and you don't have radon.
Yeah, and I will say the 1 time out of 10 is probably the person that doesn't want to lose the deal over that. Yes. But to that one person, I would just remind them, once they know about it, now they have to disclose it to the next buyer. Yes. So don't be afraid to ask for it.
Sure.
Yes.
And it's not a deal breaker. You just have to get it repaired. But if you don't get those testing services, it's you can spend a couple $100 extra on them, but you're going to be living there. And the home's the biggest investment you're going to buy. So
you're going to take the next 30 years to pay for it. Time away from your family, time away from the things you like to do, time working, So it's really important to, and I'm not advocating for emptying your bank accounts or anything, because when you're buying a home That's what it is. You're paying for an appraisal. You're paying for this. You're paying for that.
Lots
you're paying for a
fees.
survey. You're paying whatever, happens. And so it's a difficult time. So,
but in a way you're paying, I mean, that's why I always look at it as a cost benefit analysis. You're paying to ensure that you don't have more significant issues down the road.
Yes, that's correct. And that's I think one of the ways we're different too is when you hire us, and I'm out with you, there are a lot of home inspectors that if you look at the report after they're done, they won't get beyond the point of saying, oh, I've identified this. Now go get a qualified X, go get a qualified this guy, or go get a qualified contractor for this. And that's all well and dandy to say that. However, you should be giving, in my opinion, you paid me for a service to come out for your house. You should have some knowledge and not just be pushing it off onto another guy for a liability thing or whatever, whatever it turns into. Sometimes there's, home inspectors, they're scared, so they just push it out onto 6 different guys. Yeah. And now you're hiring 3 or 4 other guys, and your realtor has to try to sort it out with you.
That's the thing. They're organizing all the tests to make sure everything's coming back and all the communication. It's just, it's unnecessary.
In most of the time, yes, there are some things, like electrical. Electrical can be really dangerous, and maybe you don't want to be in the panel changing stuff around if there's some things where you should have a licensed electrician, or a licensed, say, plumber, for sure. But, you don't have to, once you have a home inspection, you shouldn't have to, for every defect, go get a licensed contractor in that field to really know what's going on. Yeah. And I feel like that's a little bit of a shortcoming in the industry, and it's not, home inspectors aren't always servicing their clients because they're like, hey, I just paid $550 for you to inspect my home and do my radon and all that. And basically now you're pushing me off to 5 other people, and I don't really know what to do.
Right. Well, that's the thing too, is one thing that really bothers me about home inspectors as well from like my history is like the lack of education on the why behind it.
Yes.
Because, you go to their website or you go to, whatever their marketing materials are or whatever. And it's like, it's a void of information. Yes. And it's like, here's the price and here's 4 bullet points of what we do. And it's like, well, is a first-time home buyer. I was terrified of every single step. Yes. Everything that popped up, was a new fire because I was brand new. I was like 23. Yes. Didn't know any. I knew way less than I do now, which is not saying much. It's still not a whole lot. But the whole thing was like, I get into it and it's like, oh, well, you need, are you doing FHA or conventional? What the hell is that? Yes. Are you doing, and did you know that the inspections are far more strict on one than the other? Yes. And you go into all of that, but like a really good home inspector, you guys are talking about all this education, could really mitigate against that by just simply informing the consumer up front and saying, hey, we might be more money. However, if you go and get 6 other people to help you finish that guy's inspection, it's going to be twice as much.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think like what you're just saying, when you have that, come up for first-time home buyer. I love working with first-time home buyers because there's like 2 tracks. Like if you notice what you just said, it's exhilarating because you've never done this before, and it's the first time you're buying the home. But yet on the other track, it's terrifying at the same time. Yeah. So it's like 2 sets of emotions just running, smashing into each other. Like and
you never know which one's going to win that day.
And it's important to have that experience. Yeah. Where
it is because you're going to find the defects, and he finds them all the time. Every home has minor, major, and when you find them, because he's a builder, I think this is really cool. He can stop and say in front of the agent, in front of the buyer, guys, this is how you fix it. I was in Home Depot yesterday, and this is what or Menards or Lowe's, and this is what happens. And you can indeed fix, tell them how to fix it. Like, I'll give you an example. There was a grading issue. When I started 10 years ago, I didn't know what grading was. So now I know. And he's like, hey, you just got to buy
every
some
house.
Yeah, right.
Almost.
It is. He's like, you just have to buy the dirt. You have to, you have to basically sculpt it this way, make the water go away from the house. That's the key. And I mean, it was an easy fix. So the buyer was terrified. Had that buyer had a home inspector that had no idea how to build or how to fix things, he would have just been up a creek because he would have been scared. He might have walked away. Yeah. So your knowledge is really, the extensive knowledge is really helpful to the buyer.
Well, I think what you just said is huge because the lack of proper grading what she's saying is it's really inexpensive to fix grading. Sure. And the first thing that they tell you to do is go get a waterproof guy, right? Go get a foundation expert, that kind of thing. And next thing you know, you're roped into paying $20,000 in. Yeah, you're putting in a waterproof system in your basement, and it's this, the next great thing. It's space age, and we're spending $23,000 on a system to keep water out of your house. When if you just brought dirt in around the exterior of your house and got your put new gutters up and. Yeah.
4 bags of dirt and a 6-pack of Miller Lite, and we're
there
all
you go,
set,
and
friends.
everybody's over.
Yeah,
maybe some pizza too,
And, let's not go crazy.
Let's
Or they're scratching their heads because they're like a video gamer and they just got their home inspection license and they don't know what to do.
And you'll be the first time home buyer is no match for like a salesperson that's out there to sell them a new waterproof system. Yeah, and it's unfortunate. And
I remember we were looking at our first house, and there was mold. What I thought was mold in the garage, and again, don't know anything. So I'm looking at this, and the realtor's like, "You can just paint over that," and I'm like, hold on a second. You can paint over mold? I said, that doesn't seem right. So my brother-in-law is a mitigation expert. Effect. So so I said, this dude's telling me you can paint over this. And he's like, oh, hell no. He's like, we have to do testing. He's like, we have to figure out what the extent of it is. So he came in and fixed everything. Yeah. But I'm like, that just doesn't seem right. You can paint over mold. 'Cause if that's the case, there's a lot of houses from the 70s that should still be standing.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully nobody has allergies there.
Right? Which I do. Yeah. And find out where's it coming from. Like, what about the source?
And that's a thing to understand the building science. Where does mold come from? That's a good point. Yeah. It comes from moisture. It's as simple as that.
Dark places.
That's right. Yeah. Dark places, no sunlight and moisture. And you have to, painting over it, you got to take care of the source even before you clean it or fix it or whatever you have to do for whatever's there. If it's a household mold or whatever, whatever the test comes out at,
So. Yeah, that just blew my mind. I was like, oh,
that's something.
I was like, that bare paint from Home Depot is really putting in some work.
Yeah, there you go.
It might kill the smell for a couple days, but it'll come back.
Yeah, just because of the smell of the paint's masking it.
There you go. Yeah. It's gassing off, and
I love it. Yeah. All right, guys. So if someone wants to get a hold of you, what is the most efficient way for them to do so?
I'll let her answer this because
I take all the calls.
She's got the pager.
Because if I'm in a crawl space or I'm in an attic, I might not be answering the phone.
You have answered them on rooftops before. I've known.
And she always calls me in an attic.
I do.
Hey, we have an emergency. Oh, well, I'm under this insulation right now. You got to do this.
One time he was on an apartment complex because he does commercial too. So he was up there and he's like, what do you need? It was pretty funny. It's like I have that radar. You've been together 20 years. You know how to aggravate each other subconsciously, right?
So you just check his location on.
Yeah, I do.
Find mine.
Yeah, that's right.
He's like, I see that he's at a nice elevation right now. I'll call him.
Typical wife, doing the location thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I like to stir him up. Well, we work together. So we do have a lot of fun. I'll tell you that. We actually get along very well. We have a lot of fun and we love it. But, we have to take breaks quite often to get our heads back on. And we have 3 kids.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That are homeschooled. So
that's a lot of work.
It is. But really, I did what it mean when I said about the 24/7. Text me. I love text messages because sometimes I'm in the car or somewhere. But our number is 517-455-4219. It's like, think of it as an emergency pager. It goes right to me. If you need Ben, I can get Ben for you. Or I can book your home inspection. We do have booking online, convenient booking online. If you don't want to talk to anybody and you're an introvert, you can do that too. Or you can talk to me. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Very good. All personality options available.
Yes.
And text, you don't even have to call. You can text.
Love it.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you. We had an amazing time.
Thanks for having us.
Good deal.
We're happy to be here. So
excellent.
This is the funnest one we've done so far.
Well, good. Appreciate that. Take that, morning radio.
That's right.
All right, friends, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Chamber Podcast. You can find all of the relevant links for my guests today in the show notes. Until next week, catch you later. Take care.
Bye.